everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sketchy Legends. Today, we're going to talk about an urban legend that has a very fuzzy history that spiderwebs across the world. Her origin is a mystery, and no one can seem to agree on the details. So, if you're ready, sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of Sketchy Legends. If there's one thing that every child has ever had in common, it's that they love to try to scare the pants off their friends or siblings. Telling scary stories on camping trips in the middle of the woods at night, or whispering under the covers about an urban legend that their older brother told them just before their first sleepover away from home. While every area of the world has different versions of the boogeyman, there's one urban legend that has followed almost every child in the United States. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. I've never been able to follow through with the ritual. The first time I heard about Bloody Mary, I think I was in first grade. A girl that I went to school with was telling me about it over lunch, and I distinctly remember telling her that I didn't believe her. She said, "Then try it tonight, I dare you." I don't remember my response, but I do know that I chickened out. I found several different versions of the Bloody Mary ritual online. However, every single one of them seems to involve the same three things: a candle, a mirror, and chanting Bloody Mary. Since there are a few different tellings of the story, and the outcome of the ritual varies, I'm gonna start with the more common version that almost everyone seems to know about. The person playing the game is to lock themselves in a dark room, which is typically the bathroom, but not necessary for the ritual. You then light a candle and stare into a mirror. Lastly, you repeat Bloody Mary 3 times. This is where things start to get a little bit fuzzy, though. Almost every article or tale of urban legends lists a different outcome at the end of the ritual, so here's just a couple instances of what may happen. After you've summoned Bloody Mary by chanting her name, she will appear behind you in the mirror. You need to wait her out, almost as if you're having a supernatural stare down. If you give in and turn around to face her, she'll rip your soul from your body and trap you in the mirror for eternity. The next most common version is that she'll appear to you in place of your reflection and reach through the mirror to claw your eyes out. There are other variations of even just the appearance of Bloody Mary. Some say she's a young woman in Victorian clothing, and others say she's dressed in modern attire. Sometimes she's actually physically dripping with blood, having a full-on Carrie White moment, and others say she's perfectly clean, and that her name just represents her bloodlust. An earlier version of the urban legend seems to come from a party game that young women would play to figure out who their future husband would be. This one involves a bit more coordination on the summoner's part. First, they would turn all the lights out in the house, or blow out the lamps, because some articles suggest that this game was played before electricity was readily accessible. The player would then light a candle and start walking up the stairs backwards toward a mirror, chanting Bloody Mary 13 times. When they would reach the top of the stairs, they would turn around and face the mirror, but be sure to keep their eyes closed until they finished chanting her name all 13 times. Once the ritual was complete, they were to open their eyes and see the face of who they were to marry in the mirror. However, if what was staring back was a human skull, it meant that they were to die before ever having the chance to marry. The earlier version, while also a game, was used as a way to hopefully see into the future, whereas the more modern-day retelling suggests that we just really want to scare the hell out of ourselves. But the real question is, who's Bloody Mary actually supposed to be? This part was honestly the hardest part of my research. Even though all urban legends have different origin stories or have originated from different places around the country, the story of Bloody Mary seems to stem from at least 2 different continents and several different countries for various reasons. Some of the women who Bloody Mary was supposed to be based off of are real historical figures, where others have no proof that the woman actually even existed. I read several lists of who a reflection demon could potentially be, but for the sake of time, I'm going to narrow it down to 3 different women, 2 from history, and 1 that is a bit more tricky to track down. The first woman was literally called Bloody Mary by practically everyone. Her real name was Mary Tudor, or more well known as Mary I of England, the daughter of the famous womanizer Henry VIII. She ruled both England and Ireland with an iron fist from 1553 until her death. Now, why was she dubbed Bloody Mary? Well, let's give a little bit of a backstory. Her father, King Henry VIII, had 6 wives over his 36-year reign. His first wife, Catherine of Aragon, who was also Bloody Mary's mother, had a lady-in-waiting named Anne Boleyn. King Henry became infatuated with Anne Boleyn and moved to annul his marriage with Catherine of Aragon. However, in order to do so in the Catholic religion, the annulment needed papal approval, and since King Henry and Catherine had actually been married for nearly 25 years, annulment wasn't necessarily an option. So, in order to end his marriage with Catherine, King Henry excommunicated from the Catholic Church, and the Protestant Reformation began. Even though there were other reasons for the Reformation as well, we're just going to stick to this specific subset of it. King Henry began to rule England as a Protestant country instead of a Catholic one, separating church from state and making it legal for King Henry to annul his first marriage. Fast forward through the rest of King Henry's reign, and once his daughter, Bloody Mary, came to power, she began to transition England back into Catholic rule. Now, this is where she gets her nickname from. Religion has never been a clean subject by any means, but Mary I took it a bit too far. While trying to enforce Catholicism onto the people of England and Ireland, to make a statement, she burned upwards of nearly 300 Protestants at the stake in order to make England more Catholic. While she has the nickname of Bloody Mary, I'm not quite convinced that she's the woman that you supposedly see in the mirror. This next ruler I find extremely fascinating, which I won't spoil too much of her history because I actually think she deserves a video of her own. The next name that was thrown into the running was Elizabeth Bathory, also known as the Blood Countess. Elizabeth Bathory ruled in 16th century Hungary and is one of the most notorious serial killers in history. It's said that, with the help of a few willing servants, Elizabeth kidnapped, tortured, and killed young virgin women in her quest to stay youthful. But how would killing virgins do that? Well, you see, it's said that Elizabeth would drink and bathe in the blood of her victims to keep young forever. It isn't exactly known how many people Elizabeth exactly killed and tortured, but the number is estimated to be over 600. Our last woman has a bit of a confusing backstory, mostly because nobody can decide if in fact she's a real person. Mary Worth is a complicated tale. Some people stated that she was a witch who was burned at the stake during the Salem witch trials, whereas others say she was alive just during the time of the Salem witch trials, but wasn't actually a part of the events that took place in Massachusetts. The story I'm going to stick with is the one that has the same elements from each story, without the nitty-gritty details that changes them so much. Mary Worth was a middle-aged woman who lived in the woods by herself in 17th century New England. She was known around town to be a witch who made tinctures and salves to cure illness. However, because many people of power in the town secretly purchased these concoctions from her, she was to be left alone. Adults always told their children to stay away from Mary because she was a witch, while they would buy her goods to treat the rash that these same children had contracted or bring down the fever that they were suffering from. One day, several young girls from town started going missing without a trace. While the town frantically started searching for the girls, some people had noticed that Mary was looking more youthful. However, one night, a local miller noticed that his daughter was acting strange. She would stare off into space and then started speaking to herself illegibly. The girl's mother was resting in bed one night nursing a toothache with actually one of Mary's salves when she looked out the window and noticed that her daughter was wandering toward the woods. She alerted her husband, who ran out of the house and after his daughter, only to notice Mary Worth at the edge of the woods, pointing at his daughter. Once Mary noticed him, she ran off and disappeared into the trees. After retrieving his daughter and taking her back home, the miller gathered the townspeople and went after the witch. They found her in the woods, bound her, and forcefully carried her back to town, where they burned her alive at the stake. I don't know if the disappearance stopped after Mary's death, or if, in fact, she escaped her execution. There are many variations of this story where even the time and history changes, where some people even say that Mary Worth was a teenage girl who died in a car accident. There are even newspaper comic strips that have been around since the 1930s called Mary Worth. However, I'm pretty sure there's no association with the story of Bloody Mary. While some of these women may have had some influence on the urban legend of Bloody Mary, it's nearly impossible to find the exact origin of such a story that has traveled by word of mouth for several generations. Even though I know that nothing will happen if I play the game, deep down I always think, but what if I do see her? Which is what has always stopped me from trying. I won't even say her name 3 times in a row in broad daylight away from any mirrors. There have been stories online of people reporting that they have played the game and had actually seen something in the mirror, but nothing bad had ever come from it. And because of that, there was a scientific explanation offered. When the eyes spend enough time in the dark or in low lighting, especially staring into a reflective surface, it isn't uncommon to hallucinate something in the mirror, or even seeing something move. It could literally be something as simple as a trick of the light. All I know is that I'm not going to find out for myself. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Sketchy Legends. Have you ever played Bloody Mary or considered it? Did you believe in the legend as a kid, or do you still believe in it? Who do you think the woman in the mirror is based off of? Let me know in the comments section down below. While you're down there, tell me what you think of this week's episode, and give me some suggestions for future episodes. With spooky season in full swing, I'm in the mood to do some research on some really creepy subjects. And I want to say a special thanks to my friend Kayla for suggesting this topic to me, telling me about how even the thought of Bloody Mary used to scare the hell out of her as a kid. Kayla also has a YouTube channel called Kayla Remarks, where she talks about beauty and lifestyle products and is always unbiased and super informative. I'll link her channel down below so you can all send her some love. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already for some more urban legends and artwork. And if you want to see some more of my art, you can head on over and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at j_dfiore_art. I also recently opened up my own t-shirt shop on Teespring, and the first design is now live and taken directly from my episode of Sketchy Legends about Baby X. That video, along with the link to the t-shirt shop, will be down below in the description box. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.